Well, good evening, and thanks for joining us this evening for Evening Extra here at News Channel 7. It's Veterans Day, so first of all, happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans that served. We're very grateful and thankful for you. And speaking of veterans, I'm very lucky with me this evening that I've got one of our local very own veterans with me, Alex Semmler, who served in the Navy. And Alex, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me tonight.
Yeah, so we're Alex, in case you didn't know, actually also happens to be the better half of Nisa Wilkins. So, I mean, that's what you said, right? No.
I told you to say that.
Okay, yeah. I was paid a small fee, but we're still happy to have him here. And we want you to be able to tell us all things and anything that you want to share with us, of course, about being a veteran. But if you want to just start with, well, I guess starting with what made you want to serve. When did you start?
Well, I joined the Navy in 1986, and I just graduated high school, and I was planning on going to Southern Illinois University to study business, but being an 18-year-old male, I was not too focused, and I started looking around my surroundings, people I was hanging out with, and it kind of dawned on me that I was not ready for college. And I remember after football practice, there was always the recruiters would be there with a cooler full of sodas and stuff, and we would take the soda and write fake names down on the little list they tried to get. And then I started thinking about that recruiter, and my parents were actually on vacation, and I went and visited a couple of recruiters, and back then they had a little commercial, join the Navy and see the world, and I thought, well, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I went and talked to a recruiter and signed the papers right there and then.
And this is while your parents were on vacation?
They were on vacation.
So they didn't know you were going to do this?
They had no idea.
Okay.
And yeah, I was, I had a bit of a rebellious nature with some things, and I loved and respected my parents, but I sometimes I went off the rails.
Well, so what was their, first of all, what was their response when they found out you had done this?
Well, it was kind of funny because they were at a vacation home that we have, and I called them, and I had my mom and dad on the phone. I said, well, I joined the Navy today. And there was a bit of a pause, and my dad said, did you really, or is this a joke? And I said, no, I actually signed the papers today. And his response was, I'm very proud of you.
Wow.
And funny thing about that is that the recruiters, like, this was in August, and he said, well, we can get you out of here probably January, February. I said, no, if you want me to sign, I want to leave within the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
And he said, what, are you in trouble with the law? Is there something going on? And I said, no, I just don't want to hang out that long and possibly get into trouble.
Right.
And
so you're really looking out for yourself there.
I was trying to,
Yeah.
because I was young, I was stupid and prone to do stupid things, and I wanted to eliminate the chance of doing one of those stupid things.
So did you get out in 2 weeks?
I got out in 2 weeks, and back then it was my dad and a little sister. She was, I think, 9 years old at the time. They drove me to the train station, got on the train, and went up to the MEP station in Chicago, and flew from, well, that was another thing. Back then there was boot camp in Orlando, Florida, Chicago, and San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my stipulations was I wanted to go to boot camp in San Diego because I grew up in the Midwest, never been to California, and
Right.
I wanted to see California.
Yeah.
And so flew out of Chicago into San Diego. Still have my United Airlines stub from that flight.
Yeah.
And back then, boot camp was no holds barred. It was.
What do you remember getting there, starting boot camp? Were there any? What was the thought of, like, what have I done?
There was kind of when people were in your face, calling you every name in the book.
Yeah.
There may have been a little physical contact, which I can neither confirm nor deny.
Right.
But it was I said back then they turned boys into men, and it was eye opening and educational,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty arduous. A lot of running, physical. Something that kind of threw me off was a lot of classroom. You had to learn the history of the Navy. We all went through basic firefighting, flooding of ships, because Navy, they've got those things, even though I never went on one. But it was really neat looking back, and the graduation, you're really filled with pride that you accomplished something. Because I back then, being a young man, I wasn't too good in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I was just glad to get through it.
Right.
So then I being in the Navy.
So how long was boot, like how long does that take, boot camp, before you
Went from
graduated?
August to the I guess the end of October.
Mhm.
And when I joined, I really didn't know anything about the Navy, being from Illinois. And I joined the Navy Seabees, which are the construction battalions of the Navy. They build airfields, and they go in with the Marines. And I had no clue. And when I told my dad, his reaction was, "Oh, cool, John Wayne and the Fighting Seabees,"
Yeah.
which I had no clue what that meant. But I knew I liked John Wayne.
Right. So it had to be good.
So it had to be good.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love John Wayne?
Yeah.
And so I graduated boot camp. Some people had to stay around a couple weeks till their school started. Well, I flew out the next morning, and I flew into Gulfport, Mississippi in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember landing, and they have a taxi that takes you to the base, and I remember seeing absolutely nothing. It was a sleepy little town of nothing.
Right.
And then got to the base, and all I saw were what I saw was Army soldiers, because everybody was in green fatigues, not
Right.
even camouflage. They were OD green, which is olive drab. And I thought maybe they took me to the wrong base. And because all I knew, I was a sailor. I thought I was. Well, everybody in the Navy is a sailor, but I learned quickly what the Seabees were. And
And what did you learn that they were?
I learned that they could build and they could fight. So you were a combatant, and my trade was I was an electrician, a construction electrician.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for 6 years, and I was kind of getting tired of it.
Yeah.
It was getting routine, and I liked excitement. I liked some, always looking for that next, I guess you could say, adrenaline rush. And I was in Italy, and I saw these, back in the early 90s, these cool guys walking by with their Teva flip-flops and Oakley sunglasses. And I was like, well, what the heck are these guys? They're
Yeah.
cool. And
How do I sign up for this?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so they had a EOD MU-8, which is an explosive ordnance disposal unit there in Sigonella, and I talked to their gunner, and he told me about the engineer divers, which I was like, all right, that sounds cool. And so I trained, and you have to a lot of running, swimming, and got ready for that, and I got accepted to go to the dive school. And so that's kind of where my career took off. And,
So that was after like 6 years.
that was at the end of 8 years,
At the end
because
of- okay.
I had to fulfill a tour overseas, and then
And so when did you get to start, like after you, or how was the training after you trained to dive and everything? What was?
oh Lord, it was 6
Yeah.
months, and I was pretty sure every day that they were going to kill us. Lots of physical training, lots of running.
Are you like having to, I mean, I know you would be on tanks and everything, but do you also have to learn how to like hold your breath extended periods or stuff
You
like that?
you did, because there's a phase where they call it where they shark you, where they come and rip your gear off you, and it simulate like if you get caught in a rough zone in the water. Could be a tidal surge, could be anything to where it rips your gear off. And the number one thing is not to panic. If you panic, you're going to die probably.
Yeah.
So they teach you how to stay calm, assess the situation, and retrieve your gear, or whatever gear you can find, and get some air back to you.
Mhm.
And
I feel like that's so much easier said than done, just to actually not panic where you naturally would panic.
you naturally probably would, especially when you'd have to crawl along the bottom of the pool, and all of a sudden a guy comes down and starts attacking you. And there, I, there was some blood in that pool that I saw from some people, and they might smack your tanks back to your head on accident, I'll say. And at the time, it was I guess terrifying. Afterwards, looking back, you're always like, well, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, as long as I don't have to do it again.
Right.
But it was really, really cool. And they have different levels of diving. There's second class, first class. I actually got to become a saturation diver also, a salvage, construction, demolition diver. I loved explosives. And
So what would be, if you had a regular day, what was like a regular day for you?
in what phase? Like in school?
No.
Oh.
And once you're diving and you're as a saturation diver, what would be like a kind of a typical mission or something you would have to do on any given
Well, so
day?
I was an engineer diver, so we had two teams. There's the UCT 1 in Virginia, UCT 2 in California. And that's where UCT 2 in California is where I spent the majority of my career. But I did a tour out and came to the experimental diving unit here in Panama City. And that's where I became a saturation diver. I did deep dive, I think it was '02, and I think it was 17 days we were down, if I remember correctly.
17 days?
Yeah, you're saturated, so they use helium and inert gas, so you can go really deep and stay for a long time, and it gives you that squeaky Mickey Mouse voice, and you have weird dreams. But besides that, it's kind of cool.
Well, so you would, at what exactly, for most of us who probably, of course it just says recording has stopped. Good thing we checked that for a second.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's pick that back up.
All right.
I'm gonna keep recording. So, for most of us that don't really even know or understand what a saturation diver is, can you explain that for us?
Saturation diver is divers who go extremely deep, and you cannot breathe like air as we are breathing because oxygen would become toxic. So they use
how deep are we talking here?
Up 1,000 feet, and it's like you hear about like these oil workers or the guys who go down welding very deep. They can go that deep because they're saturated and they stay for a long time, and they don't necessarily stay in the water. They come out into a shelter to where they can shower and eat, and there are living arrangements. And then,
But all of that's underwater.
well, the capsule that takes them down can actually be brought back topside to a ship, but it is sealed off and it maintains the pressure of the depth that they were, like let's say 1,000 feet or 850 feet.
Right.
And then, so they're maintaining that pressure, but being like when they come up topside, there's a lot of control for what they're breathing, what they're eating, and they're monitored. So it's a really incredible science, and a lot of people don't realize that the saturation diving was developed here in Panama City at the experimental diving unit, along with, I believe it was Duke University. They did a lot of studies together. But I was there for 3 years, and then I left there in '02 to go back to the team to actually took me back a little early because things were stepping up there in Iraq, and that's it sounds weird to people, but I really, really enjoyed the combat tour. It was
Well, you did mention you liked explosives. So
yes, it's a lot of fun.
What were some other, like things that you just really enjoyed other than the explosives? You're going 1,000 feet deep with explosives.
No,
No.
goodness, no.
Okay.
That would that would be scary in and of itself. Um, the saturation diving, the deep diving, I did. It was training, and a lot of that is because for real world scenarios, you have to train so that when it's needed in real life, that you have
You're ready to
people
go.
available, trained, and you can do it quickly, safely, and proficiently.
Mm.
So safety is always a key, because that is an extremely dangerous environment, and that is, I'd say, 99.9% in the Navy. Those are the Navy, the fleet Navy saturation divers who do that.
Mhm.
And I just kind of sneaked in there and got qualified, and it was a lot of fun.
And so how long were you doing that? You said you went
I
to.
did that. It was a 3-year tour,
Okay.
and I left a few months early to go back to my my team out in California, and so I got out there in December, and I was there for 2 weeks, and sent off to Kuwait to stage for the possible, but I would say imminent invasion of
Mhm.
Iraq, and that was a great experience. The camaraderie, and we served under the 1st Marine Division, the 1st MARDIV, under the they call it the MEF, the Marine Expeditionary Force, and I loved it. I love the Marines. We always joke they're a department of the Navy, and they love to remind us that they are the men's department. But there is no finer fighting force in the world than the United States Marines, and it was an honor to serve with them. And I wear the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor emblem on 2 of my my medals, which I wear those with pride.
Mm.
So
Well,
yeah.
you mentioned earlier when we were talking, you like to kind of, I guess, discuss or brag on other veterans.
Yeah.
A
lot of heroes.
Yeah, a lot of heroes. Tell me, I mean, 1, 2, any heroes that really stand out to you that you got to work with?
Well, right now my heroes are our son is serving, and our son-in-law. He's our son is a aviation ordnanceman. He's with F-18s in the Navy, and our son-in-law is a JTAC in the Air Force, and he is with a PJ unit out of Moody Air Force Base. So those are my heroes, but the heroes I served with, some of the things I saw, meek, mild people who you never expected doing the most courageous things in combat, going in, saving people, using themselves to cover people, or put themselves in danger to save their shipmate, their teammate,
Mm-hmm.
fellow soldiers. It was humbling to be a part of some of these units. One of my favorites, I remember a unit out of 29 Palms, California. They were Suicide Charlie, and if you go back to their history in World War II, they are just heroic. And one of their gunnies I met was actually on the one of the Survivor series, and it was funny. I never really got into those shows, and when I met him, he introduced himself, and then everybody's telling me he was on that show, and I was like, never seen it, and he got a kick out of that, and he and I became pretty good friends after that.
Yeah.
And then we
I
bumped
also
in.
heard that you, really quick, let me, before I
Yeah,
forget, that
sorry.
you had a cool rock that made it through combat with you?
Oh, yeah. It was. We had a giant truck. It was called an MTVR, and the thing was a beast. And they were new to the military back then, newer, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And we were testing them out to see what they were capable of down in Kuwait. And we were out on the Udari Range, and we're going up these giant sand dunes. And there were the mud flaps on the back that just got ripped off because I guess that's why we were testing them. And we got to the top of this one giant sand dune, and there was this odd-shaped rock sitting on top, right in between the rear tires, and on I guess on the spring pack, I guess you'd call it. And I figured it had to be stuck there somehow, and I went and picked it up and looked at it, and it wasn't stuck, and I just sat it back down there. Didn't think anything about it. And it was a few weeks later the invasion started, and we went through all kinds of places from Al-Nazariya, Babylon, Baghdad, Diwania, Al-Najaf, and in one place in Diwania where I was driving the truck and had a trailer on the back full of explosives, and this, I don't know, like sewer outfall thing, it caved in, and the truck got wedged like in a V shape between the truck and the trailer. And back then during the invasion, you would just leave vehicles, destroy them so that the enemy can't use them. But it was our only big truck, and it had a lot of gear, explosives, and so we disconnected the trailer, and the truck wound up driving out of this thing, and we got the trailer out, hooked it back up. It's, things went on, and after the things calmed down, we wound up retroing back to Kuwait to what was it called? I think it was Ali Al Salim Air Force. It had a really nice base there, and we went back, got some food, cleaned up a little bit, and then I was walking by the truck, and I looked, and there's that rock sitting there. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. And I picked it up, same rock, still sitting there. And I was like, well, this rock needs to come home with me. So I still have that rock. It's my rock from Iraq. And I know it's a thrilling, exciting story, but I don't know. I figured that rock needed to come home with me for some reason.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be.
It's like Wilson with Tom Hanks and his volleyball.
It was.
You were meant to have that rock.
If you're old enough to remember the 70s when some guy made $1 million selling pet rocks, well,
oh my gosh, yeah.
I got my pet rock.
And you still have him. Does he have a name?
No.
No
No,
name.
I guess I never got that far. It's just rock.
Another fun question.
Yeah.
What about when the guy asked if the Navy divers were lost?
Oh, Lord. Yeah. We were on a convoy, and we came across some Marines who had been mortared. They were kind of scattered, and it was kind of ugly. But our medic, Fernando, love that guy. He immediately went to the worst guys, and we started patching guys up. And I got on this big old Marine Corps captain, which is 03, and he was. I was patching him up, and he was a little out of it. And as I was working on him and on his guys, there were six Marines. He said, "What are the chances of a bunch of corpsmen finding us?" And corpsmen are the Navy's medics who take care of the Marines. And I said, "Well, no." I said, "We're not medics. Only Doc over there is a medic." And he goes, "Oh, what are you guys?" And I said, "Well, we're Navy divers." And he kind of looked at me in a moment of being coherent. He said, "What, are you guys lost?" And I'm like, "Yeah, have you seen any water around here?" And it was a moment of levity, and it was kind of fun. And we got the guys patched up pretty good. And then those wonderful Army Blackhawks came in and took them out of there. But that's one of those things you always question. I mean, you see situations like that, you're like, I wonder where they are now. Hope they're okay. And
what were the chances that you guys would find them and
be able
to help them?
It was kind of lucky, but we saw smoke coming over from off one of our flanks, and we kind of investigated out of curiosity, like what would be over there causing this. And so yeah, it was I guess it was a God moment. It was meant to be, and that was pretty cool. That was it's kind of funny because you kind of forget about things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot that you live through. What about, speaking of a God thing, what about the Gideon's Bible?
Oh, Lord, it's kind of funny. Before the invasion, we were at a tactical assembly area, and we were at the Marines, and there was I think 7 of us, and I always think of the scene from Blazing Saddles where the one little wagon's going around a circle by itself, and 1,000 Marines, and then 7 of us, and the Navy chaplains take care of the Marines also, and we call them chaps. And he was walking the line, talking to everybody, and he came upon us, and he just figured we were more Marines, and he asked if we had everything we needed, how we're doing, and he checks people, for emotions, because it's stressful knowing you're going into combat. And we're like, yeah, we're good, chaps, we're fine. And he said, is there anything you need? Everybody have a Bible? You need a Bible? And we're like, no, we don't have room for that. And he's like, what do you mean you don't have room for that? And we're like, we're not Marines. We don't have all the trucks and armor. And I was like, we only got 3 vehicles here, and it's full of gear. And he goes, well, don't you want a Bible? And it's like, yeah, we'd like one if we had room, but just don't have room. And so he left. And about, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes later, here he comes walking back. And we're like, what the heck does this guy want? And he walks up and he says, this is all I could find. And he pulled out a bright orange Gideon Bible. I'm like, well, that's just great, chaplain. Thank you. Talk about a target. And laughed about it. And I wound up putting it in my left breast pocket on my tack vest. And that little orange Bible made it all the way back. And it's on my bookshelf at home. And oh gosh, I guess in like 2012, the wife was singing for the Gideon's International, it was for the women's section. So the women's auxiliary, maybe, I don't know if that term's right. And I went up to do my husband duties to support her and be there for her. And she had me tell a story about that. And I forget what the orange was. It's the orange Gideons, each color represents where they're handed out. And I think that was like for grade school or something. And I got a kick out of that. And the president of Gideon's was there, and he gave me a couple camouflage ones. He said these will work a little better, but yeah,
less of a target.
Less of a target. But yeah, that was a fun one, and it's sitting on my bookshelf, and it's got the ripped off tab on the MRE, the meals ready to eat. Always comes with a pack of matches, and ripped off the top of the book of matches, and that's my bookmark, and still have it in the same place where I was reading when I left. That's and yeah, it's a fun little story, and a little orange Gideon's Bible saw me through a lot of stuff. And
well, tell me the story of Hector.
Oh Lord, Hector.
I've been given tips to talk to you
yeah,
about.
I can tell.
Hector's supposed to be a good talking point.
Oh, Hector was funny. Hector, anybody who's been out to little horseshoe-shaped island in the Indian Ocean named Diego Garcia. It was a coconut plantation out in the British Indian Ocean territories, the Biot, and we've got a base there. And oh boy, it's a long time ago, 30 years ago. I'm dating myself. We went in to dive there to inspect. They had just built a new wharf there for where they'd bring in submarines, and we were checking it out. And the British Marines have a little contingency there, and we were at their little clubhouse eating lunch one day, and the Marines asked us if we had seen Hector, and we were like, I don't know. I don't know if we've met him yet. Where does he work? And they're like, no, Hector's a shark. And we're like, well, the place is filled with sharks, because in this particular area in the Indian Ocean, everything in the ocean that can kill you seems to live there. And so seeing sharks is not a big deal, and most of them don't even give a hoot about you. And so we were like, you're young, dumb, I guess, but kind of cocky, and we're like, we had a shirt, says some men fear the sea, but the sea fears some men. You're like, yeah, whatever. But we're young. You think you're invincible, and you think you're really cool. But they said, no, he's a huge hammerhead shark, and we're like, whatever. Yeah. And so they said, look here on the wall, and they had a picture of the shark next to this little rowboat, and the name of the rowboat, so we thought, was Hector. And the shark was bigger than the boat, and we're like, oh yeah, whatever. And they're like, no, you don't understand, and you need. And so they walked us out, and there we saw that boat tied up, and we all kind of took a step back because it was a 20-foot long boat, and the shark was bigger than the boat.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah, that's what we said. And we're like, so much for that T-shirt about being cool. We're like, I don't think I want to go in the water. And next day, my dive partner and I, we were the first dive set, and all I could think of was the music from Jaws, and I was thinking, man, I am just shark bait. And um, so we splashed, and I was pretty sure we were just going to be both eaten immediately.
Yeah. Hector snacks.
Hector snacks. So we were diving, and I kept just thinking about the size of the shark. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm looking left and right, and all of a sudden a big old school of fish goes flying by me from right to left, and I'm looking, instead of following the fish, I'm like, something's chasing these fish. Now, anything will spook them, barracuda or whatever, but this went on. They were going back and forth a few times, and this one time they went from left to right, and I'll never forget, man, I got whacked in my side on my left side, and I was like, oh, Hector's got me. It's the end. I'm a goner. And I was like, oh, I figure I'm not going to go out without a fight. At least Hector's going to know he was in a fight.
Yeah.
And I went to swinging and punching and hitting, and something's thrashing, and all of a sudden I stopped, a moment of clarity for me, and I look, and this fish, it was probably like a 3-foot long fish, I guess. I guess it was a cross-eyed fish. It had hit me and slid in between, got caught in between me and my buoyancy compensator, and it was stuck. And it was thrashing. I was punching this fish, and I
You're
sucked
punching
in.
the fish you're determined is Hector.
I was pretty sure it was Hector. It
Yeah.
turned out it was just like goldfish.
Yeah.
And I kind of sucked in the gut, and the fish swam off. And about then, my dive partner turns around. He just had not stopped. And it seemed like this went on 15 minutes. It was probably 3 seconds. And if you're a scuba diver, you know it's called over-breathing a rig. I was just breathing like crazy. Bubbles just, huffing and puffing. And he turns around and he gives me an okay symbol. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Why wouldn't everything be fine? And I'm like, thank God nobody saw this. And we finished the dive and got up, and it was pretty hilarious because I wound up having to tell everybody because I love a good joke, and I don't mind if I'm the brunt of a joke, and it was pretty funny. And
Did you ever see the real Hector?
We did, and we found out that the galley, they used to dump food, and they used to feed him off the end of this pier, and he was huge. His hammer was probably about 5 feet across, and
How do you, once you see that and you know that exists anywhere in any water, anywhere in the world, how do you get back in the water?
carefully, you let your dive partner go first.
Yeah.
No, I guess you just can't. You can't focus on it. It's like being a
Right.
taxi driver. When you see a bad car accident, you still have to do your job.
Yeah.
And I figured I was getting paid to dive, shoot guns, blow stuff up, and I didn't want to mess that up because it's like every young boy's dream. We grew up with G.I. Joe, and you wanted to be the cool guy. You wanted to be the knight that slays the dragon, saves the princess, and it was fun doing what we did. It was an honor to serve our country and to work with the heroes that we did. The men and women serving our country are the finest Americans you could ever meet. And I forget what percentage, it's like less than 1% of all Americans have ever served their country. And it's just an honor. And some of the people you meet, and looking back, and some of the horrifically stupid stuff you did, and you're like, thank God I lived through that.
Yeah.
And don't know why I did. I guess God still has a plan for me, but I always tell everybody, I'm so thankful that cell phones did not exist back in.
I almost said that a few minutes ago. I'm
back
like,
in
when
my early days.
Thank goodness social media and
Oh.
cell phones weren't a thing when you were battling the.
Yeah, because I think I'm still wanted in 23 states, but
Yeah.
if those phones would have been around, it'd be all 50,
Yeah.
and then probably a few countries. But yeah, did a lot of stupid stuff. I guess everybody does in their days. But
Was Hector the largest creature you saw in the water?
no, we saw orcas and whales, which are, it's kind of mesmerizing. You're like, how did anything this big exist?
Yeah.
The so whale sharks, which are just mesmerizing to watch. I mean, they're so graceful, beautiful.
Did you ever have any sort of like encounters with marine life that were curious in you guys?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
especially out in the Channel Islands, out in California, or even when diving off Coronado, and the sea lions are extremely curious. You'd be diving and just stop and just have that, I guess, your spidey senses, and you'd like look over your shoulder and there'd be a sea lion, and
Like, hey, what you doing?
you're like, oh, I'm so glad I wore my brown wetsuit today.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're playful, curious, and dolphins are super cool. The Navy has a marine program, marine life, where they work with the dolphins, I think belugas, sea lions, and got to go down and see those down in San Diego, and really cool programs. I mean, you dive long enough, you get to see all kinds of cool critters. I guess off Kauai, we saw a giant tiger shark coming up out of the deep blue, and that got us out of the water really quick, because tiger sharks are very aggressive, and they'll eat anything, and I did not want to be eaten.
Yeah,
So
not that day.
that was neat to see, but I guess anymore it's better to see on National Geographic or something like that.
Well, you've mentioned how grateful and thankful and honored you were to serve with everyone that you did, and what would you say to any young person that's kind of where you were when you were 18, calling your parents to say you just joined the Navy? What advice would you give any young person that's maybe considering joining any of the armed forces?
Well, first of all, I'd say join the Air Force, because they have the best quality of life. But no, any of the branches. I think I've been to countries, Israel and Italy, where it's mandatory for young men to serve 2 years, and I honestly think it would be fantastic to do in our country. It's a great way to mature, and a movie I love, it's the what was the one where they had to fight all the bugs and stuff, the giant bugs invading. But to become a citizen, you had to serve in the military.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's necessary, but I would say the pride that you come out with, the maturity you come out with, and just knowing that you are one of a very select people who actually serve their country. They're, pain is temporary, pride lasts forever. And after I retired, after 24 years, I went to college. I was a late bloomer, and it's amazing. I barely made it through high school, and then you get to college, and they go over the syllabus, and you're like, wait, that's all I got to do? Like, I can have a whole semester, or is this due like at the end of the week? And it's amazing how you can address a situation when you're a little more mature.
Yeah.
So anybody who has doubts or is struggling, don't think you have to go to college right out of high school. There's trade jobs, which are wonderful, but the military is just a fantastic route because you have benefits for college afterwards,
Yeah.
and pride.
Yeah.
You have pride. And so I love all our military heroes, especially the people who are willing to put others before self, and that's what you're doing when you do join the military.
Yeah. Well, we thank you not only for joining us this evening, but for putting others before yourself and for your service. Happy Veterans Day. Thanks for
Thanks.
chatting with us. And yeah, any final thought you want to share with anyone?
Well, I love our Gulf Coast here because we have lots of bases, and I would like to thank all of our community for the way you treat our veterans, our heroes. You know, they give us military discounts, and they really honor you. And there is no better place in the world to live than right here on the Gulf Coast.
All right. Alex Semmler, thank you so much, and happy Veterans Day.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this evening extra. We will see you back here again tomorrow night, and hope you have a great evening. The news never stops, neither do we. You're welcome to join us for our 10 o'clock newscast. We hope to see you then.